The following podcast is sponsored by Structure Tech.
Can you explain Easter egg for people listening? What does that mean?
Well, it's the thing you don't ever expect to find, but you find them occasionally, and you're really happy when you find them. Welcome, everybody, to Structure Talk, a Structure Tech presentation. My name is Bill Ulrich, alongside Tessa Murray and Ruben Saltzman. And on today's episode, we're going to talk a little about Easter eggs again. It's been a while since we've visited on the Easter egg subject. And Ruben today, when we had pulled up to the studio, he was kind of giddy. He had found a few Easter eggs at a home inspection he did today, which, by the way, what gives? Because this is the first home inspection in 14 years?
I was giddy just because I was doing a home inspection. Yeah, I don't do a whole lot of those anymore.
All right.
Bill, can you explain Easter egg for people listening? What does that mean?
Well, it's the thing you don't ever expect to find, but you find them occasionally, and you're really happy when you find them. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, Ruben's going to give a great example of it. So why don't I just put it in your lap and you demonstrate through story what an Easter egg is.
And this is something we talked about on our very first podcast episode. I think we talked about Easter eggs. And on our last episode, we talked a little bit about this, about finding buried fuel oil tanks. Mm-hmm. And it's just one of those things where sometimes you almost trip over it and you go, oh my goodness, I sure am glad I found that.
Yeah.
And then you're very thankful. Mm-hmm. But we thought, let's come back to this.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing a home inspection with Malind. Long story of why I ended up going along and doing an inspection, because I've just about given all my tools away. I'm not even equipped to do a home inspection anymore. But I can still hold my own. And there was just a handful of things where it just makes my day when I run across this stuff. I mean, for me, inside, it makes me feel good to know that we found it.
You're glowing, Ruben. Right
well, I feel that way. Thank you. One of them was
home inspector shine, right?
Yeah. One was the toe kick register in the kitchen. It's a 2007 built home, and on a lot of those homes, you're going to have a little register below the kitchen sink that you got heat or you got cold air coming out of. And we find people seem to mess those things up left and right. It's one of the most common issues we find on new construction homes, but we'll still check them on a lot of other homes. And I look down, and we always look at where the ductwork connects to the front of the cabinet, because if it doesn't come all the way to the front of the cabinet, you're going to have a bunch of cold air during the summertime, AC. You're going to have a bunch of cool air filling that cabinet space, not making its way out of the register. And it makes for a really cold cabinet. And we've called this out many times. I've got one client who bought a new construction home who had this condition. I said, yeah, ductwork doesn't come to the edge. You can create mold problems, have it fixed. And the builder's like, yeah, your home inspector's an idiot. We're not fixing that. We do them all this way. 5 years later, he sent me the photo of the inside of his cabinet. He's never had a leak. The whole bottom of it is just black and covered with mold. Oof. Because there's cold air leaking into that space. I checked my own cabinet. It was one of these 97-degree days in Minnesota just recently, and I had to do something where I pulled all the towels. I keep a bunch of kitchen towels there. Pulled all the towels out, and underneath it, I realized it was wet. And I was like, oh, shoot, why is this all wet? But then I kept feeling it. No, it's not wet. It's just really cold. Makes it feel wet. And
did you not find this in the home inspection?
Well, this is my own home.
I know.
I personally taped up that ductwork. It is totally sealed. It just felt that cold because there's a duct underneath there. I don't even have air leaking out of there. Just imagine how bad it would be. Well, I could, but I mean, I can see it. If I do have air leaking out, it's going to be minimal.
You're going to go home and open up your cabinet now?
All right, I might.
So what's the test you do to see if your ductwork is sealed?
Well, I just look at it. I'm not doing any type of specialized testing.
Duct blaster test, Ruben.
Get out of here with your duct blaster test.
Well, I mean, you don't know for sure. It doesn't leak unless you do the test.
Well, my house was built in 2003. I'm assuming my ducts leak like a sieve.
Probably.
All over the place.
Yeah.
All right, now you got to explain what a duct blaster test is, Tess.
It's a big fan that you hook up to a furnace and you basically can measure the amount of air that's leaking out through the ductwork. So you pressurize the ductwork. And they do that on new construction houses. They do that on houses where they're concerned about leakage in ductwork.
So do you seal up one end and then blow it up like a balloon? Or do you...
Yeah, they do. They have to tape off all of the registers, all the supplies, all the returns. So it's a sealed system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And how much leakage is allowable?
That's a good question. I
ahead.
wish I knew. I don't remember anymore. It's been so
Okay.
long.
Well, it should be 0.
It should be.
It's
I
not
can't remember.
0.
It's a percentage, isn't it?
I don't remember. I do know that there's a big difference when the ductwork passes through unconditioned spaces.
Yes.
Like if you have ductwork running through an attic, the tolerance is way less.
And actually, maybe do they only have to do the duct blaster test if there is ductwork outside of the thermal boundary?
That might be the difference there.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Bill's getting sleepy over there in the corner. So
Sorry,
let's
Bill.
move on.
All right. We'll wake Bill back up. So anyway, back to the story. I looked down underneath there. They brought the ductwork all the way to the face of the cabinet. It looked fantastic. I was almost going to take a picture of how picture perfect this was, but then I got down farther. I'm laying on my stomach here, looking underneath the kitchen, just because
Getting in
this is
there.
what we do. And I get in there with my flashlight, and I go, oh, wait a minute. No, this is not good. You've got the duct coming up through the floor, and then they've got a big piece of sheet metal coming right over the duct that completely obstructs the whole thing. So they're going to get basically no air coming out of
Wait,
it.
they had it blocked?
Yes.
With a piece of metal?
They had a block with a piece of sheet
Weird.
metal, and I will put that picture in this podcast
Huh.
to show you what I'm talking about.
It's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. And so it's one of those things I go, oh,
I think
I'm
they were
glad
trying
I
to
was
test
on my
you.
stomach with the flashlight
Yeah.
looking underneath here. And
Wow.
it's just one of those things where you say, I wonder how many people would have seen this.
Did you have the spidey sense, like the tingle, like I need to get down there and look?
I totally did. I get that all the time.
So
where
it's such a good home inspector.
I had already looked at all this, and then I came back to it. I was like, wait a minute. I wonder what's going on here.
I think you set him up. They were just testing him to see if he still had game.
Might have been.
You passed the test.
So
All right, so
that was a fun find.
you had something else you were very excited about. too.
There was a few of them. There was a light. I went to flip the light on, and I'm surprised I even noticed this. Now, I haven't been out inspecting, but as we've mentioned in previous podcasts, we're wearing masks during our inspections. We are wearing gloves. I mean, we say we'll either wear gloves or wipe down surfaces. Nobody wants to wipe down surfaces. It's a huge pain in the butt. So we're wearing gloves. I'm wearing gloves throughout the inspection. And I just went to flip the dimmer switch, and I just noticed, oh, that's unusually warm. Take a look over at the light it's controlling. It's a big chandelier with 9 light bulbs. What's the rating on the light bulb? Get up there, look down at one of the bulbs, 100 watt, 900 watts. Now, quiz you
500.
guys. What's the standard that a dimmer switch is going to be rated for? How many watts can it handle
Is it
standard?
600? Oh, with
Larry!
Larry got
Producer
it right. 600.
Larry is holding up his fingers. Man, Larry, well done, sir. You know your dimmer switches, don't
Yes,
you?
he does.
How do you know that? All right. Well, yeah, that's a standard is 600 watts.
So how much draw is on that one circuit with 900 watts?
Like what else is on that circuit?
No, I'm just saying like how many amps is that light fixture drawing?
How many amps? 900 divided by 120, whatever that is. I don't know.
That's 7.5.
Okay.
7.5 amps on that one light bulb?
On
Or
one
that
light
light
fixture,
switch?
yeah.
Wow.
So, hopefully the circuit's designed for it. We don't get into that, but I do question it when I got a warm dimmer. And so right away, I just took the screws off the cover plate and take a look at it. And this one was actually rated for 1,000 watts.
Oh.
So no harm, no foul. We're cool. But
No, you're warm. Not cool.
we're warm, but it wasn't a problem. But it was just another one of those little things where, I mean, I've even blogged about this. And I just wonder how many people are looking at this.
Have you ever seen a melted switch?
No,
Okay.
no, I haven't.
Okay.
No, not yet.
Well, you passed the pop quiz because I wanted to know if you could do that amperage equation thing quickly. So
Yeah, I know what the formula is. You give me a minute or two, I would have been able to come up with 7 point whatever amps you said, but I'm not that
and
quick.
Tessa passed because she got the 600.
No,
So
that
you-
was Larry.
Well,
he said 600.
You said 500, 600.
I couldn't remember.
Whatever it takes.
With one tab removed, is it 500, and two tabs removed, it's 400?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yes. Elaborate, Tess.
Well, if you change that switch and you remove the little tab on the side, then it can handle
Because-
less wattage
Why would you remove the tab?
to get it to fit in the desired location.
Yeah, like if you have two of them side by
Yeah.
side, you remove the tab so they will physically fit in the box. But there's less heat being dissipated.
So it's a space issue. It's a heat sink issue.
It is.
Gotcha.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. So, and there was one other thing that you kind of.
Oh, there was a handful of things. Those were just fun finds. Another one was the air exchanger. And, we've talked about air exchangers or HRVs. And this is one that I would hope any home inspector would find, but I gotta believe not everybody's checking this stuff. We had found the intake and we found the exhaust and we had turned the HRV on at the beginning of the inspection, but there was no air coming out. And Malin told me, yeah, I don't think I found the HRV exhaust. I found something, but there's no air coming out. We still gotta find that. And I said, oh yeah, you keep going on this. I'll go track that down. And I turn the HRV on. There's no air coming out. I go back inside. I'm holding it. I'm like, I don't feel anything running. And I tried everything, and I opened the thing up, and I just put my hand inside on the HRV wheel to move it. And normally you just give it a little push and it spins. Well, this would not move. And finally, I pushed really hard on it, and I was able to get the wheel to turn, but it was just grinding the blower fan. So the fan is toast.
What
The
year was,
HRV
what year
is
was the
toast.
house? You said 2007?
2007.
Wait, could you hear it? Like when you flip the switch, you said you turn it on. You thought it was on because you could hear it running?
I thought it was on because I heard a click.
Oh, okay.
A call
okay.
for it to run.
All right.
Yeah.
Because usually you can kind of hear a low humming noise when it's
Yeah.
running.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I wasn't hearing that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so that leads me to the next question, and I have a follow-up question to the next question. So, wasn't there a time when these HRV motors were known to go bad on a very specific model? There was a brand, and I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to misstate who it was, but Dwayne, one of the first home inspectors here at the company, I think he even predated you, Ruben.
Yeah, he was. He started with Structure Tech in '96.
Gotcha.
My dad bought this business in '97.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, there is one that had a motor where these motors would go out. But
Interesting.
summertime, you're running your HRV?
I don't run my HRV in the summer. The whole idea with the HRV is better indoor air quality, and it gets rid of condensation issues. And you don't have condensation issues in the summer. And as far as air quality goes, I keep my windows open all summer long. So I constantly have major air exchanges all summer. So yeah, I definitely don't run mine.
But air quality, if there's a ton of pollen in the air, is subpar.
I was going to say, if you've got someone with allergy issues and they keep their windows closed and they keep their AC on, then it would make sense to have your HRV running too, just for air quality purposes.
Sure.
Are
sure.
you gonna throw a lot of cold air to the outside in that process, or no?
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah, there will be an energy penalty. I mean, you go to that exhaust and you're going to feel cold air coming
yeah,
out.
probably.
No
But I
doubt
mean,
about it.
I would say minuscule compared to the amount of warm air you're pulling in through all your attic bypasses.
Sure. It's all
14 windows
relative.
open. There's a lot of warm air coming in. Okay. All right. That was the thing, because it's always confusing to me about those appliances. Obviously, we run them all winter long. We run them in the shoulder seasons, but different people will tell you different things. And for example, I run my furnace fan all the time until I met Ruben and Tessa, and now I only run it fall through spring. So why is that the best approach to a comfortable house in the summertime?
Well, you're going to increase humidity if you run your furnace fan at the same time that you're running your air conditioner, because your air conditioner is going to turn on and off. And every time the AC turns off, if your blower fan continues to run, it's going to take all of that household air and pass it over the evaporator coil for the air conditioner. That's the part that removes humidity from your
Right.
air.
Yep.
And now it's taking that air and it's passing it over this big wet thing. And now it turns your air conditioner into a humidifier. And so your humidity levels are going to start spiking as soon as the air conditioner shuts off, if you have your blower fan set to on all the time.
Gotcha. All right.
So you're going to be unintentionally distributing a lot of moisture throughout the air. So don't do that in the summer.
Now, there is a wonderful article that explains this. I know it exists, and I know, Tessa, you might know where it comes from.
Can't remember the person's name who did the research, but
It's a woman's name.
oh, it's a woman.
I didn't say it's a woman. It's a woman's name.
Oh, is it Allison Bales?
Allison Bales.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, so you can look that information up on what is Allison's.
We'll put a link to it in this
Sure.
podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's one of those conversations I started having with people when I was doing home inspections about running the furnace fan all year long. I told people I was told not to do this.
Yeah.
I'm a good listener.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Okay, so Tessa, any Easter eggs you've run across in the?
Well, you know, I was thinking back. There was one house I was inspecting a few years back, and it was in St. Paul, and it was for a couple that had been looking for a house for a long time, and they loved the area, and they liked the character of this 1930s house. You know, it had the kind of the standard like old house things. We covered a lot of these things in the previous podcasts, like 9x9 floor tiles and knob and tube wiring and stuff. Ungrounded 3-prong outlets, some 2-prong outlets, that kind of thing, whatever. They seem to be okay with that sort of thing. But I get down to the basement, and the whole basement is finished, but there's a small section that's missing some ceiling tiles in the utility room. And I had noticed earlier that there had been some kind of dips and sags in the floor on the first floor, which, isn't really cause for concern in a 1920s house. You're going to have some
character.
Yeah, it's right. It's character. But I had noticed some cracking on a wall in one area and this big dip. And so I started looking around to try and get a look at the framing. And there was a missing ceiling tile. And so I looked up there first. And I couldn't believe it. All of the floor joists were just charred, like just black. So then I got really curious and I started poking up above some of the other ceiling tiles. And sure enough, there's like spliced knob and tube. There's more charring, all this stuff going on. And I was like, oh man, if this is what I can see, what can't I see?
Yeah.
Right? What's happening in this house? So a lot of questionable wiring throughout, and then just the evidence of fire. And the thing that scared these buyers the most is that the sellers had been there a very long time and they did not disclose a fire.
Oh, sure.
So I don't know what happened with that. I want to say that they walked away, but I don't know for sure.
Maybe they don't remember they had a fire if they lived there that long.
I don't know.
That little thing?
I don't know.
That event in the basement where everything was smoky. Oh, yeah.
How many times have you gone into a house and the seller's still home and you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to run the furnace. And you're like, oh yeah, that thing's good. I just put it in a couple years ago.
You go,
And then you go in the basement and it's like 19 years old. And I'm
Yeah.
like, your time
Yeah.
is different
Yeah.
than mine.
yeah, time flies, I guess. Yeah.
Always.
Yep.
Always.
Yep. Yeah, so that was one that kind of surprised me, but I was, really glad that there was some missing ceiling tile there so we could find that. But
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good find.
yeah.
We're all glad you found that.
You know what? I think one of the topics we should talk about are things we found above drop ceilings.
Electrical hazards. Drop ceilings were invented for the express purpose of hiding electrical hazards.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's why people came up with those.
Well, and they're also very good at marring themselves. So you can't find that electrical hazard without upsetting the people who own the house.
Yeah. Damaging a corner, not getting it put back together.
They
Oh
never
my
go
God.
down.
You know what?
Never go
I
down.
just remembered when I was in training, I was on an inspection with Dwayne, and we were at this house that was kind of on a woodsy property, I remember. And it was like a walkout basement situation. I remember Dwayne lifting up, the ceiling tile with one of his tools, just kind of poked at it. He lifted up the corner of it, and just this like waterfall of mouse poop just came down and just showered him. And Dwayne wears love you, Dwayne. He wears these jean overalls. That's what he
coveralls,
wears.
overalls.
Yeah.
That was his trademark.
His trademark just went down the bibs, like in the bibs, just covered in it. And he took a moment to just kind of wipe off his glasses and put them back on and just dust himself off. And then he just kept going. And I was like, oh my God, I'm never lifting ceiling tiles.
Oh my gosh.
That's one reason that clothing is so useful, because it'll find its way down to the floor eventually.
Yeah, yeah, you're
Nothing
right.
to hold
Just
it
goes
in
right
there.
through.
It just, yeah.
Yeah.
Right down from the top to the bottom.
Yeah. So
I'm
maybe you
thinking
get
we
a
should
couple.
make that like a company uniform. Everybody wear
I
bibs.
would, you know what? I would not be opposed.
I bet you they're really comfortable.
I used to have two pairs of bibs I wore all the time.
Did you?
In like 5th grade, they were my go-to.
You call them bib overalls?
But yeah, bibs.
See, I say that too, and my wife
Yeah.
makes fun of me. She's like,
bibs?
"Why do you call them bibs?"
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I called them growing
I
up.
always
Maybe I'm wrong,
call
but
them too.
Yeah.
Bib overalls, but
Yeah,
she
I loved
mocks
them.
me for it.
Loved them.
I don't get it. Tess, you said something that made me think of something else. You talked about whether the homeowner should have disclosed that, and maybe they forgot. And I had a recent conversation with someone, and Bill, maybe this would be a good one for you. You've got your real estate broker's license.
Okay. I'm
Therefore,
listening.
you're an expert on this.
No,
I'm
but
declaring
I'm-
you an
I'm
I am
listening.
declaring you an expert on this. How much should people disclose? Like if you spill a cup of water on the floor, do you disclose that as water damage?
I wouldn't.
Okay. What about if your kids do a lot of extra splashing and they spill a bunch of water outside the tub during bath time? Do you disclose that?
Do you know if there's a problem that's resulted from said splashing?
No, you don't know that there's a problem from said splashing.
Have you taken reasonable measures to prevent said splashing from leaking through the gaps and potentially causing damage?
Like, don't let the kids splash anymore? Yep, sure have. Check that box.
Or maybe, bought some caulking and put a bead of caulking there so that, or maybe you throw a towel on the floor.
Well, let's just say you haven't.
It's hard to know. It's hard
Okay.
to know. Everybody's barometer is different. So continue, though.
And these are all hypothetical that I'm making up. This
Okay.
isn't my personal experience.
Okay.
I'm just thinking of some ways that you could have water in places where it doesn't belong in your home.
Sure.
What if the toilet overflows? What if the toilet's clogged, you flush it, and it overflows?
Yeah.
Then do you disclose that?
What measures did you take to clean it up?
Well, you did a bunch of sucking in the walls. You rented a commercial dryer and you sucked the water out of the ceiling and
So
called it done.
I am always of the opinion that when something like that happens, you say what happened, you can tell them what you did, and then let somebody make their own decision about if that's a problem. And for me, I think most people would be appreciative of the honesty versus not being open.
Okay, all right. I don't know. Someone was asking me this, and I just said, well, I kind of asked these potential scenarios, and I said, I think it's kind of a gray area. I don't think there's a clear dividing line, and I'm not sure where the right answer is.
Well, we talk about one-time events and probably not being a big deal. Was it dirty water that leaked all over the floor? Was it clean water? Did you what did you do? Give me some more information. Are you trying to hide something, or are you trying not to explain something? Those are the questions that come into my mind. I don't care about the water on the floor. I'm like, whatever. That's no
Yeah.
big deal. What are you not telling me now that I know you didn't tell me about that?
Sure.
Now
Yep.
I've lost confidence.
And to see it from the other side, every time I'm doing a home inspection and there's any mention of a previous leak on a disclosure, like from 12 years ago,
You know it's bad.
well, no, it's the buyers are freaked out about that. I mean, that's their number one concern. Well, we want to make sure there's no hidden mold in the
That's
wall
true.
from this
Yeah.
leak that happened 12 years ago or whatever. And I mean, the idea of that is just absurd. I mean, you're not going to have mold actively growing in walls from something that happened a long time ago, especially if they had a restoration company come in and they gutted it and you've got documentation. It's over. It's done with. But people
You
are
could have
still
mold growing
really
in your walls
worried
for
about
some
it.
other reason.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
ask those questions,
Yes.
but people
You
don't.
might
Yeah.
have a piece of ductwork that's got a hole where it doesn't belong, and now
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
blowing cold air
Yeah,
on the place.
You're right.
that it
People
doesn't
really
belong.
focus on those things in disclosures, and they really get worked up about them.
They do. My thought is that it's always kind of like a restaurant that maybe just got shut down because they had salmonella poisoning or something. It's probably going to be really safe to eat this week. They're being looked at very carefully. You're probably even safer now than you would be otherwise. I don't know that for
Yeah,
sure. but
and when it comes to real estate disclosures, you have to disclose material facts of the house. It's that simple.
okay.
And if I don't think it's a material fact and you think it's a material fact and it's a really big deal, well, somebody's going to probably make the decision on if it was a material fact or not. Some other person. It's not going to
Okay.
be up to me anymore, and it's not going to be up to you anymore. I'm guessing that's the way this stuff all shakes out. But if you know something and you don't tell somebody, well, that's problematic.
Sure. Okay.
But it's a material fact. I mean, that's what the standard is. So you fill in the blank. And as I said in an earlier podcast, everybody has different tastes for these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And you probably see that going through these disclosure agreements.
How about this one? Would you disclose this? And now this one, this is me. The other ones I was making up. We were gone for a week and we come back home. One of my kids, I'll assume it was one of my kids, had not closed the shower door and the shower had not been turned off all the way. It was on just a hair. So there'd be a drop of water about every 3 seconds, one drop. And eventually the water, it got to be enough where it started to become a small pool on the tile right outside the shower from the splash of a single drop. And over a week's worth, it was enough to leak down between the shower and the tiled floor and stain the kitchen ceiling,
Wow.
which we just had redone and,
Oh, no.
you know, new texture and new paint and all that. Now there's a stain right in the middle of the kitchen ceiling about the size of a hockey puck. Super annoying.
Oh.
So would that be something to disclose? I mean, my plan is I'm going to touch it up with Kills and repaint it. But, I mean, is this a material fact? I don't know.
I'm going to defer to you to make that choice. As a real estate agent, I have to disclose what I find out to be material facts. Now, that probably isn't based on the story that you just told me. But the other side of that coin is when people don't tell about the things that happen in their houses, then they sell them and they move away. And then the neighbors come over and they're like, oh, yeah. Did Frank and Mary tell you about the time when they had the fire in the house? And you're like, what? No, they didn't tell me about that. You're like, oh, yeah, there was 3 fire trucks out in front of the house.
Sure.
That always happens. Neighbors always talk.
No,
And
with the
then-
home inspector, they left the oven on.
yeah, or whatever it might be. But yeah. So I don't know. I'm an open book. I mean, like if you're going to come after me and be like, hey, I need $500 off the price of this house because you told me about that, I would be very like put off that my honesty would be used against me. I just want you to know, I don't think it's a big deal. It was 7 years ago. I don't think you'll think it's a big deal, but I'm just telling you what I know.
Sure. Okay.
All right. Easter eggs part 2 are in the books.
Yeah.
And we even got into some real estate disclosure stuff. I don't claim to be a real estate professional at this moment.
You know more than us.
You know way more than us. Therefore, you are a professional, Bill.
Well,
That's all it
I am a
takes.
real estate professional, don't get me wrong. My real estate license is with a company that does business brokerage. So this house stuff is different. This is kind of out of my league. But the standards are the standards when it comes to disclosure.
Okay.
All right, you've been listening to Structure Talk, a Structure Tech presentation. My name is Bill Ulbrich, alongside Tessa Murray and Ruben Saltzman, and we will catch you next time. Thanks for listening.
For more information on how we can provide you with the right information about your home before you buy or sell, contact us at structuretech.com.